right? That's willing to defend one's own worth, that's willing to defend one's own good, right? It's that part of you that gets all riled up. Another way to think of spiritedness is in terms of patriotism, right? You hear someone attacking your country and you start to get angry, right? You start to get emotional, right? You defend your country, you defend the leaders of your country. Well, in a way, that's a manifestation of what Socrates calls spiritedness or thumos, right? That part of you that's loyal to your own, the part of you that's loyal to your own country or your own family or your own tradition. Okay, it's a very important part of the soul in Socrates' analysis. And finally, you have the desiring part of the soul. That's the part of the soul that desires physical bodily pleasures, food, drink, sex. Obviously, without these desires, we couldn't survive very long. So there's nothing inherently wrong with the bodily, physical desires for Socrates, but they have to be ordered in the proper way. Okay, so notice how the three parts of the soul relate to one another. Socrates argues that reason should be on top, or think of it as reason should govern or be in charge of spiritedness and our bodily desires. Okay, just as it would be unjust for the artisan class or the guardian class to take charge in the city and to make the political decisions of the city, so it would be unjust for spiritedness or the bodily desires to rule over our own souls, right? To make the decisions and to have the end goal of that part, right? So we wouldn't want the desires to be on top. That means that ultimately we'd be governed by our own desires. And we wouldn't want spiritedness to be on top. Otherwise, we would be dominated by our own attachment to our own good. Okay? Now, Socrates spends many pages of the Republic going through and making an argument for why there are only three classes in the city, why there's only three parts of the soul, and the different relationship between the three. So this is just a broad overview here of what he argues. We really don't have the time to develop this in that great of detail. We'd have to read the text straight through, right, book after book, in order to really to develop his argument for this. This is more of a broad picture of what he argues. So three classes in the city. Those three classes in the city correspond to the three parts of the human soul, and corresponding to the three parts of the human soul are three different virtues. Okay, so this is the part about the virtues. In Plato's Republic, Socrates talks about four principal virtues: wisdom, courage, moderation, and justice. Okay, so let's take up wisdom. Again, the virtue of wisdom is associated with the part of the soul that is rational, the part of the soul that thinks, that reasons, that contemplates, that asks questions, that comes up with universal definitions. So a wise person will be someone who is governed by reason and not spiritedness or the desires. Courage is the virtue associated with spiritedness or associated with the guardian class. So courage is that virtue that allows us to overcome our fear, right? That, and in particular, it would be the fear of death. So Socrates thinks it's real important that the guardian class who are going to protect the city don't have a fear of death. I mean, obviously, if they're going to be a good soldier, they have to be willing to put their life on the line for their city, for their country. Well, courage would be the virtue that would allow them to do that. The third virtue is moderation, and moderation is associated with the desiring part of the soul, or the artisan class. So think of moderation as the ability not to give in to one's desires all the time. Right? The ability to enjoy certain desires, of course, but not to go overboard with them. Okay, so they're moderate. They're, well, we could say they eat and they drink to survive, right? They have sex for reproductive purposes, but they're not going overboard with, they're not completely dominated by those desires. Okay? So we got wisdom, we got courage, we got moderation, and finally we got justice, which is a virtue for Socrates and is really the most important of the virtues, simply because the Republic is dealing with the central question of justice. And justice, Socrates argues, is found in the city and the human soul when the proper order on the screen exists, right? When reason rules over the desires with the help of spiritedness. So Socrates argues that spiritedness has to team up with reason to rule the desires. Okay, so remember, spiritedness is that part of us that is willing to stand up for our own self-importance or self-worth. Right? That part that gets angry when we're attacked, or when our family's attacked, or when our country's attacked. Well, Socrates seems to think that emotion, that anger, has to team up with reason to keep the desires in check. Right? The same way the guardian class in the Republic has to team up with the rulers to keep the artisan class in check. I mean, ultimately, if the artisan class rules, makes all the decisions in the best regime, that will result in an unjust, unnatural order of things. Well, the same would apply to the human soul, right? If the human soul is to be just, then spiritedness has to work with reason to control the desires, to make it so our desires don't get out of whack and in turn come to dominate us. So there really is, as Socrates thinks, a direct connection between the city or the regime and the three parts of the human soul. And also a direct connection between the three classes in the city, the three parts of the soul, and the virtues that are associated with them. Okay, so here is just another slide briefly dealing with the four virtues and how they relate to the classes within the city. And I pretty much went over this already, but just real quick, because there is a study question on them. Wisdom is to be found in the rulers. Okay, so we want in this best city wise rulers to make the decisions. Courage is to be found in the guardians. We want our soldiers to be courageous. Moderation is found in the harmony among the classes. And justice is found in each class doing its own job or minding its own business. So that's a famous saying here in Plato's Republic, where Socrates says that justice is minding your own business. And what he means by that is each class in the city, or each part of the human soul, essentially has to do its work and do it well. So if you're an artisan, be a good artisan. Do your work well. If you're a A soldier, a guardian, be a good soldier, protect the city. If you're a ruler, be a good ruler, be a wise ruler, and do what's right for the city. Well, the same can be applied to the human soul, right? If reason is that superior element in the human soul, then one's decisions in one's life should be made by reason. And spiritedness should team up with reason. It should be the ally of reason. The desiring part, that third class of the human soul, right, ultimately should be kept in check by spiritedness and reason itself. Okay, so there is a direct harmony, you could say, between the city and the individual soul, or that's what Plato argues in his Republic. Okay, I'll stop this lecture here, and we'll pick up the next one with Aristotle's Politics.